All righty. Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Glines, and my colleague Jackie Stuck, who's over in Denmark.
Yeah, hello.
Is we have these monthly AutoHotkey webinars and coding. I have a friend with me today, Gabe Cook.
Hello.
And I'll let him give his rundown a little bit, and then our guest presenter Jean Lalonde is up in Canada. So we're coming to you today. Jean's going to share some cool stuff of how to connect to a running script or program using the context menu from Explorer. But before we get in there, let's go over some of these things. So I don't have a background in coding. So I'll introduce it. So Gabe and I met Gabe in grad school, and it's really weird. We lived in this really small apartment complex, and we both happened to use SPSS, which is a statistical program that nobody else uses. And we both actually use syntax, which was like so rare. And so when was that? That was 2000-ish, right?
Yeah,
it's been a while since we've been coding together. And then since it, so like roughly around 10 years ago, somewhere in there, we started using AutoHotkey. And then I'd say it wasn't right away, but after that, we started having weekly, what we called codecations, right? We would have a vacation together for usually like 7 days. And out of the 7 days, 6 days would be like 12-hour days where we're just sitting at the computer and finding ways to automate things or to learn. One year we did it. We was learning Python with trying to do our statistics in that. But it was just, we had a lot of fun. And then we'd have like, one evening where we would actually just like relax and talk normal stuff. But our talking usually is like work and figuring out fun ways to do stuff. And then, so Gabe, why don't you tell them a little bit about your background and how you use AutoHotkey?
Yeah, so I'm a professor of psychology. My area of research is memory. By no means am I a programmer. I wouldn't call myself one. I never had a background in it. So anything that I kind of figure out how to do is just all self-learned, and sometimes it's just searching for an answer and a solution. But it was probably about 10 years ago. So Joe introduced me to AutoHotkey, and some of the early things that I was doing was just basically hot strings and text replacements. Some of the things that we code, for example, just trying to remember exactly what that would be. And we converted some of that stuff to hot strings to automatically populate the code and so forth. I probably use AutoHotkey a lot like most other people for launching programs automatically, or on startup, it sets up your computer doing different things. I code both in R and in Python, and also in AutoHotkey, and sometimes in SPSS, and sometimes I'm working with systems that most of you are probably familiar with the forward versus backslash. So I've used AutoHotkey to copy the path in one program, and then if I'm in another program and if it knows I'm in that window, it'll actually switch the slashes for me. I've used it for refocusing the mouse on different programs. I know Joe said a lot of people use the everything indexer. I use that a lot, and I've used AutoHotkey to interface with that to make it a little bit more efficient. I've done one thing is with my institution. They want my computer to scan at various times, and it really just takes forever. So I just made a script to warn me when it was about time to scan, and then I can finish up the stuff that I'm working on, and then basically wait for it to hibernate. And then 10 minutes later, I could just go back to my computer and open it up, and I skipped over the scan process. I built a self-customized, I guess, file backup program for myself, because I wanted something very lightweight, and where I wanted to move files to, I wanted to customize that. And I write a lot of letters of recommendation for students. And if anybody is familiar with that, if there are anybody out there who has to do this, also my students, maybe applying for 10 different jobs, and those jobs have different addresses. They have programs, their master's programs, their PhD programs. They're in different states, different locations, and They may be a clinical program or a cognitive program. And so I really hate having to write those files all the time and create them. And so what I created was a program where I would give my students an Excel spreadsheet, and they would put in the information in different columns of that spreadsheet. And then my program would read through row by row and populate the files, and then write out using COM or write out a Word document include the school logo at the top of the file, save it out, and then go to the next row and then read in the parameters, write out another one. What's that?
It's doing a mail merge for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then I just go back and I add the content for that particular student, but the rest is just already populated. So it saves me some time. I make them do the work to save me some time. But
and then I know also because with your colleagues, at least you did it more before, but you would share, you'd write programs and then allow them to run it, right? Or
on their that involved a lot of compiling of programs, because not everybody has AutoHotkey installed. So, but a lot of that stuff was done creating shared folders over Dropbox, and then they could interface with that in a GUI and so forth. But now my GUIs are pretty old school. So it's kind of like working with a piece of flint now, and Jean has introduced me to lighter fluid with his QAP app. So I've been spending the day changing that and modifying that so I could have most of my GUI centralized, but also with the sharing application, basically do the same sharing stuff that I was doing before, but a lot more customizable. So I'm really excited about using QAP.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, sure.
And then let me get going here in the deck. So just so you know, there were 72 registrants, and this is actually a pretty decent turnout, because we tell people, we're not trying to make money, right? We just want to share knowledge and help people learn stuff. So a lot of people register, and then they get the links later to watch the recorded video. So you guys showed up. It's awesome. Thank you. But we do, because actually I attend now these weekly calls on Amazon. I'm trying to become a seller and do the stuff. And we usually have like 4 or 5 people in that, but we use Skype, and there's no way to mute the other people, right? And holy cow, it gets really confusing when everyone's trying to talk all at once. So initially we start off where you can't unmute yourself. So if you have a question, go ahead and put it into the tool. Actually, I see Mordecai was asking about QAP. Jean, maybe you can give them the link to it. And we have a webinar, actually. It was a featured highlighted script, which I'm going to actually demonstrate a different one here in a second. But and he's got some great tutorials on QAP and how easy it is to use. And it's written in AutoHotkey. It's actually written more for non-AutoHotkey users, but I've adapted so much of my stuff. And now anything I add into that instead of building the GUI myself, which is just a nightmare. So anyway, let's get moving forward here. So we start off with just a script highlight. And I would love, if any of you guys have ideas for script highlights of stuff that you love and that you use and you find useful, give me a link to it and tell me what it is, because we've been doing this for, I think, around 2 years now. And I'm kind of like, okay, I'm kind of maxed at like the things that I have off the top of my head of what people might find interesting. And then it was funny because Gabe sitting next to me this morning, and I asked him yesterday, do you have any cool things? He's like, no, I can't think of anything. I'm like, all right. And then I was like, hey, why don't you look at this thing I just used this morning that Maestrieth wrote me, because I help people with survey research, and I had to create a unique random group of characters for this list and generate of 1,000 people, and I need them to be specifically 4 wide. And early last week, I was chatting with Maestrieth. He's like, let's just build a script for this instead of doing what I had done in the past. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't have to. Oh, okay. He's like, it'll just take a minute. And so in about 20 minutes, he wrote this script, and it's just easier to what I love was the simplicity of it. So in the script here, before I launch it, let me describe this part. Here, which I could have put into a GUI, right? You can tell it what characters you want to have in your code. So here in your unique ID, right? So this, I'm telling it any number, any uppercase, any lowercase letter. I could put special characters here. I think it'd be fine. Or I could get rid of them if I didn't want them in here. And now when I launch it, of course, it's going to launch on my other screen because that's my main window. But it'll say, how many codes do I want to generate? let's say 1,000. And then the next one's going to come up and say, how many characters would be a better description than how long, right? But let's say I wanted 4 unique characters. And bam, right? It dumps it into an object. And so here you can see in my output, right, which is also on my clipboard, it generated that 1,000 unique characters for me. But he wrote this, and I thought, like, man, that is, you know, it's rough. Let's say 20 lines. This is just showing it in this output window. But he takes it, says like how many you're trying to make, and then starts generating a random character, dumps it into if it's unique, dumps it into the object, and then after that's done, and we reach the max. Where is that? I think right in here. No, here. If it's once we reach the 1,000, then it'll break it, and then we just need to iterate over it to dump it out into whatever. Like I dump it into a variable total here, and then I can either dump it in my message box or clipboard, or here I'm dumping it to my output window. But it was a super, like for me, this would have taken me, you know, a day easily, and it would have been, you know, 300 lines long, and it would not have been as easy to update. So I was like, wow, this is pretty slick. Quick, easy, very concise, easy tool that you can use. And of course you can tailor it however you want, right? To tweak it, to create different characters. I could drop out the uppercase and just rerun it, and then there wouldn't be any uppercase in it, right? Super simple. And yet, like, I actually searched for this online before, and I didn't find anything, at least nothing free. And here it's like 20 lines, you know, and you're done. So I'll, oh, the other thing I should have mentioned was I'll email out this deck. We don't actually have a lot in it, but I will email out the link to the deck and the links to the videos too. So if apparently you're here, so you've signed up for the webinar, after some time, probably maybe since Gabe here, it'll be tomorrow night, just so we can focus on other stuff. But I'll send out a link to the actual code as well as links to the video. So if you miss something, we go too fast today, there's a recording video, you can watch it later. And for those of you that are watching it later, which would be later, not now, hi. But now let's go ahead and switch over to Jean, and he's going to walk us through this really cool thing he does, which so by the way, and we would love if any of you guys have topics you think you want to present on, you know, that others are going to find useful. We're happy to have other people, you know, present for us. It's awesome. But let me stop sharing, and then John's going to share on his computer.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for doing these webinar every month. We don't tell you enough, I think, how much it's appreciated. We have on the chat, I put a zip file. You don't have to open it right now, but Joe, if you could add it also to the
sure,
the bundle you will send after the webinar.
Right. Good idea.
I'll share my screen now. Whoops. And minimize that and make. Okay. In fact, it's about messaging between scripts. That's the main point. Now, why do we need to have scripts to send messages to each other? I'll tell you a little bit a kind of story of what took me to learning about that, because it was not an easy topic to learn about. The fact is that we were talking about Quick Access PopUp a little bit earlier. I'll show you what is this tool, and not because I want to promote this tool, but just to explain that I received a request from a user to add the capability to this tool to be used through the context menu, the Explorer context menu. And at first I told myself, oh, it will be easy, just to some registry lines and, you know, but so I found out that no, it was not that simple. I had to create a way to communicate between the actual running instance of my app and then having a small utility that is sending a message to my app telling it do something. Okay, so that's what we will do, and I will show you the real life example of that. Then after that we will build, I'll show you how to build the different pieces to make this work. So you need a receiver, you need the application that will receive the messages and take action on these. You need a messenger. The messenger is what is in your context menu and will send a message to the receiving application. I'll show you how we can test it using the command line, then how to set up the context menu using the registry, and see how if it all works as we hope it will. Of course, Murphy's Law will help us to make it a little challenge for sure. And then there's also a batch file that I included in the zip file that will remove the test context menu that we will create during this webinar. And of course, at the end, we can take questions. And if you have a question, as usual, you can ask them as it comes to you in the chat, and Joe will be able to jump in or wait at the appropriate time to ask your questions. In the second part, we can open the mic as Joe usually do when we get to the end of the presentation. So first, I will. So that's all for this. This was my deck. So I'll switch to Quick Access PopUp. So Quick Access PopUp is a pop-up menu. In fact, I will switch to my demo menu just to give you something shorter. Here.
Using that B drive.
I think you need a hot string with the path, you know, for that.
Yeah, I should. It's a new installation that I have with this B drive, you know. Okay, so here's a pop-up menu that can be used to move to a directory, to launch an application, to launch a document, and paste snippets using hotkeys or hot strings. So there's a lot of stuff there. But one of the first things is the ability to switch a given Explorer window, like this one here, to switch to another folder, or to switch a dialog box save as to the folder where you want to save your stuff. So users ask me, yes, it would be fine if we can use, for example, if I have here a folder, if I can right click on it and add the folder to my menu, or add a file, because at some point I added the capability to launch document or folder. So what I needed to do in order to do that is, my first idea was, okay, I will create a context menu entry in the registry with the command quickaccesspopup.exe/do something, and it will add it. But Quick Access PopUp being already a running application, it's not safe or even doable to relaunch it, to add something to the setting file, to add the additional file. So that's where I say, okay, I have to do something else. And so what I've done is to create a messenger. So for example, if I want to add this file to my menu here, I right click, excuse me, and I have this entry here, add file to Quick Access PopUp menu. When I click this, it will automatically open the add favorite document dialog box with pre-populated with default values to add the file I selected. And if I add it and save it, now I have this at the end, probably here, the messenger receiver file that and I can now open this file. It's my deck, in fact. So that's and also playing with that, I found that there was two context menu, one that you have when you right click, and another one when you shift right click. So it's called the extended context menu. And when you shift right click, you have additional items in your context menu, more advanced, more power user stuff. So what I've done there is to add a second entry that is add a file to Quick Access PopUp menu express. And what it does, it will add the file directly without even showing a dialog box. And this file here, messenger.exe, is already added here. There's no icon, but so it's been added without having the dialog box being shown, because I use the more power user feature available with the shift right click here. Okay, so this to run, I have to show you what is in the registry. Do you see Regedit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's in French. Some part of what you'll see will be in French because my Windows is a French version of Windows. So here, under the AHK classes root section of the registry, there is a subsection called asterisk or star, and it means all files. You have here extension, you have section for every type of extension. So if you want to do a context menu only for a Word document, you would use the .docx subsection here, but I want to add this to every file. And under the star here, there is a section called shell. And under shell, you can add what you want to put in the context menu that will be available for all files because of the star here. So I have my two entries here. One of the entry is add file to quick access pop-up menu. There's a link to the icon I used for this file. You've seen the icon earlier. And the command is, I'll try to make it. The command is a link to QAP Messenger. So something similar to what I'll show you that I call Messenger for this webinar. A command that is add file, and a parameter that is in fact the path of the file that I clicked to see the context menu. So that's for the regular add. And for the other one, which is the quick add file express. So there is the same command here, except that it is add file express, that is the command here. And there's also an additional property here that is to create extended as one of the variables, if you wish, under the context menu entry here. Extended will make this entry available only if you shift right click.
Oh, cool.
Got it?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do quite the same with the example that is a kind of strip version of all this. And we'll start with the I just opened my deck to see the order I wanted to show it to you.
So just fair warning for people who haven't played with their registry. It's a dangerous place in that if you mess something up, you can disable your computer. So just be careful if you're in there.
Make sure you have a backup of your system backup that Windows does automatically. You can do one just before playing with this. So you'll be able to recover if whenever it goes. What we do is quite safe, but you never know. So we have to be cautious with that. So the first script I'll show you is the receiver. The receiver is the equivalent of quick access pop-up in my previous example. So what it needs to do is first is it the receiver? No, it's the messenger. The receiver is here. And I want to show the receiver first, yes. So the receiver has a small GUI. I will run it right now. It's a small GUI with a default text, which is receiver, the automator webinar is launched. It is always on top GUI, making it more convenient for what we will want to do later. So it creates that, and then it sends two messages here. In fact, it's the receiver. It receives two messages. It can receive a message that is reply receiver is running. This message will be used to confirm that this application is running. So if I try to run to use a context menu entry for that and it's not running, the message will be sent and nobody will reply because it's not running. So the messenger will receive a false response or a no response and will know that way that the application is not running. So it will not continue to do what it would do. It will stop. And if it is running, so this receiver, reply receiver is running here, is in fact this function here, and all what it does is return true to say, yes, I'm here. When I'm debugging it, I can add a sound beep. So just I hear that the command is being received, it does a beep, and we know that it works. So that's the first message. This message is identified by a code here, which is an hexadecimal 2224. There is no specific reason to use this code. There's a range of code that you can use or that you cannot use. But you choose the code, the number you want, as soon as you use the same number in the receiver and in the messenger. The other code here is 4A, and it is receive messenger. So what it does, it receives the call, if you wish, or the message from the messenger, and it will receive, in fact, an array of two values. The first value is the command, for example, add file, and the second part, which is the path of the file that you selected with the context menu. So you split you split this array in two different, in fact, yeah, you split, no, excuse me, you do not receive an array. You receive a string with a pipe delimiter between the two sections of the string, and then you use split string to split this in an array of two items. And the first item, which in my case I call my variable ARR data, so array data. So array number one is the command. If the command is MSG, the receiver will display the message box with the name, the path of the file, which is array data 2. Okay. If I select another command, in fact, that we will see with the shift key pressed, it will not call the message box, it will call the GUI command, which is in fact displaying the path here in the GUI. Okay, so that's what the receiver does. Correct with this?
Yeah.
Okay. So the other part of this is the messenger. So I'll close this, we don't need it for now. So the messenger is what you add to the control menu. First, what it does, it checks if the receiver is running. So this is a function here that is running here. And what it does, it sends a message to Windows with the number, with the address 2224. In Windows, somewhere, there's the receiver waiting for messages at this address. So there's a kind of postman there that will distribute the messages to the right application. And when the receiver receives this message, it replies, true, I'm here. So that's the way that we know that if the reply is, in fact, the answer comes from the error level here after the send message. And if the message is 1, we know that it is running. There's a sleep -1 here just for debugging. I found that if it gives a pause to the script to work properly. So that's the first thing that it does here. It checks if the receiver is there. And if it's there, it will prepare the string that will be sent to the receiver. So the string is composed of 3 parts, in fact of 2 parts. The first one is a variable that, I don't know if you're familiar with the standard variables in AutoHotkey that contain what you put as parameter on the command line. So if you call a script and give parameters, the variable 0 will tell you how many parameters there are, and the 1 here, in fact, it's %1% is the first one, 2 is the second, 3 is the third. So if I have parameters here, and if I have a command in the first one, like if I have some stuff in this parameter here, I will send the copy data command with first part here is the command. So it is MSG or GUI pipe. And the second part is the path of the file that was selected. And here, after a comma, you have something that will identify the target application. And this target application, in this case, is identified by the title. So if I return here in the receiver and I run this, the title here of the window, it is what will make the message being sent to this script. The copy data message will be sent to this window here. So where am I? Switch to in the messenger. So that's the variable here contains, in fact, the name. It could be the ID, the class. You know, you can use any way that works to identify a window if you're sure it's the only window that will have this this identification. So this here, the send WM copy data function is defined here. We'll see it a little just after. So what it does, it returns a result. If the result is the word fail or 0, it means that something went wrong. And if it works well, the result here is 1 for success. So if there's no parameter, I will show a message here that say do not run the messenger directly. So we'll see an example of this right after. And if the receiver is not running, I'll show a message that says the receiver is not running, so that you know something went wrong. So now the send copy data function is here. And then it becomes some kind of magic that I could not explain. So maybe some of you know more than me about that. But what it does, it sends a DLL, it sends a message to, it creates some variables, it processes the addresses of these variables, and it sends this information to a send message command here, so a standard AHK command with this address for A, which is the copy data address, with the structure of information that has been processed here. So that's the part I do not really understand myself. I took it on the forum and I validated that it was working well. It is working well if you use a 32-bit or 64-bit version of AutoHotkey, because some variable would change it because of that. So it's really for both. And here you identify the script title as the target for the send message. So the target script is, in fact, what has been sent here as a parameter, and it is what has been sent here as the target app title. So it is sending the message and it is returning the error level that will confirm if it worked or not. And this is what is received here. And yeah. So I covered what is the script for both end of this communication. So let's make this work. What I will do first, so we've seen that, the receiver, which is running here, does not need to be compiled. It can, and I'll keep it in the script in my editor so we can modify it if we want to test something. But the messenger has to be compiled in order to be in order to be able to call it from the command line menu. So I compiled the messenger here. You see, I put an icon with a kind of, what's the name of this, a text box where bubble or, you know?
Yeah.
And if I click this directly here, what it tells me is do not run messenger directly. Right click on the folder or in the in Explorer in order to do it. So you should not make it. So that's the reply to the situation here in the receiver, in the messenger, excuse me, where there is no parameter. If now I'm opening command line, will I be able to open a command line here? Excuse me, I'll just. Command prompt here. Okay, go. So I'm in my, I'll make the font a little smaller. Okay, good old command line. So we have here Messenger. If I execute Messenger, it will give me the same message because there's no command to it. But if I run it with the MSG hello world, what we have here is the receiver replying hello world, because this messenger here received the information and sent it to the receiver. Okay, if I do the same, but I now do, instead of MSG, I say GUI, what it will do, it will send, in fact, only hello here because I forgot to put quotes. Yes. There we go. So that way we know it works. So what I've done here, I've already installed the context menu here. So that's why. Is this? No, it's not. No, it's not a context menu. I'm using it even before. We don't need the context menu to be installed to do that. We are just calling giving an instruction to the messenger to send something to the receiver, and the receiver is running. If I close the receiver, that's the icon here for the receiver, I exit the script and I try to do the same thing.
Get there.
It tells me an error occurred. Make sure receiver is running. Okay, so we've seen what was happening in the script earlier. So we have the different scenario here. Is the script running? If not, there's an error. Set the yes. And from the receiver side, when we receive the command, if it is MSG, I make a message box. If it is GUI, I change the content of this window that is not visible now because I quit this application. I will restart it here. Are we good until here?
Yeah.
Okay. So next step is to, yeah, so we have testing. We tested that manually. There's a small batch that I put in the zip file to test it using a batch, but I've done that interactively. So now what we need to do is to add it to the context menu. So for that, I created a Regedit import file. So these files are with the extension reg, yes.
Yeah.
And it is here. So the instructions are save this file with the name, with the extension reg, because we could not attach it to an email. If you, whenever you want to send it in an email, rename it something .txt and then change the erg extension when you want to run it. It's there's a security control about that email won't allow to have a registry file to be shared and executed by accident. So you make sure that the reg extension is there. You, in my script, you replace b guess Jean messenger receiver messenger.exe. In fact, you replace this part here with your own path where you install the where you unzip this this script. Make sure you're using \\. In fact, \/ is an escape character that has to be used before to create \/ or also before the quote here. Okay, so respect the same syntax here, but put your own folder here. And to run this, to import it, you will need administrator privilege. So in fact, to run Regedit, you need to be admin. So what I've already done earlier, so I'm ready for that. And so that's the instruction here. So what it will do, it will create a new entry that will be called messenger demo show or Messenger Demo GUI. In fact, we have two entries here. In the first one, it will put an icon, in both, it will put an icon coming from the executable messenger, which is the little text box we've seen earlier. And the command is put here under shell messenger command, and the command is call messenger with the parameter msg or GUI. Messenger MSG here or GUI. So importing this. Yes, Jackie?
Jean,
Yeah.
are you sure you actually need to be administrator to run Regedit?
In my case.
Okay.
It depends maybe
Because,
if you run already as administrator. It depends on the security settings of your Windows.
Yeah, exactly. Because for some users, they'd be able to open and edit some parts of the registry, but yeah, the AHK classes root, they probably would never be allowed to actually edit.
For sure, if you're running in a network environment with an IT department putting up the security, this is not the kind of thing you can do easily. And there's no portable version of this. So you really need to have...
No.
So I'm already here.
Usually they're...
Excuse me?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just saying, usually you could edit your own... the part of the registry that's about your session that you'd normally be able to edit that. Yeah.
Okay.
Your user session.
So what I'll do now, I will do file import. It's in French, and import the file that we just looked at, and it will add two items under the shell, the star shell section here. So import. I'm in the right folder. So install context menu reg, and it says the key and values has been well added to the registry, and in fact they are here now. So the first one we see the show command here with the msg command here, and the other one which is the GUI with the GUI command here, and with here the extended option that we do not have in the other one. You see, this one has, this one does not have. So from now on, if everything works as expected, when I right click on a file here, let's take this one. Now, in addition to the add file, the quick access pop-up, we now have show file name in receiver. And cross fingers. An error occurred. Oh, that's
not running. No.
That's bad because it's not running. Yeah. So if I return to my script here, the receiver script, I run it. So I know it's running because of this window. I return here to my file and I do the same thing, show file name, and now it works. We have the receiver message box here, giving me the path of this file. Correct?
Yeah.
And if I shift right click, I have now two items. The one we had before, show file, and the one that is extended, put file name in GUI. And you will see the GUI at the bottom of my screen being changed now with the path and file of this file. It works for any type of file. It will not work, I think, with folders, because for folders, there are other entries. So you don't see the menu here because I'm on folder, but you could do the same. You see the one for quick access pop-up because I configure all type different commands. If it is a folder, if it is a file.
Yeah.
If it's a file, it can be an application, it can be a document, and quick access pop-up will react according to the extension of the file. So there's different things you can do, but the basic is to create to prepare the receiver, to create the messenger, and to put the right things in your registry.
Now, when you, Sean,
yeah,
in your registry entry, the last part of it, you have the percentage 1 to kind of say, hey, use parameter 1.
yeah.
Could you receive other things than the actual path of the file by using maybe percentage 2 or something?
I don't think, but I don't know. I think that the only thing that the context menu will send to the command is the name of the file itself, the path of the file itself. There's nothing else that we can, and I can imagine that would be available at that point. But I never tried to put percentage 2, and we could try and see, we can do it. So editing here, the show, and in the command, I will change here and add percentage 2. And I will need to change the messenger. Let's close it. And in fact, command name, and here, in fact, what I will do, I have a small function that is showing a value here, and I'll
so you show it here before it's even sent.
Yeah, so it's 3, I guess, in that case. Yes, that should be. 3 here. Now I'm sure we're going to see bugs because I'm coding live.
Right.
So it is the messenger. So I would need to recompile the messenger to check for this. Do you have the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Only take a second.
So I'm saving it here. I'm opening my, I'll switch to my regular pop-up menu because I don't know where things are now that they are all in my pop-up menu.
Right.
Switch to default, yes. Okay, so this is Messenger. That's the same icon, text balloon, that's the word I was looking for. And I convert, and it is updated now. So here, this messenger has been updated. I don't need to do anything on the registry side because this file is now new, but it is the same file that will be called. And I'll have now yes, and we'll see this message here if the receiver is running. And it's not running, so we'll just start it. Receiver, run. I'll take this image. So show file name. So it says the third parameter is empty, in fact.
Yeah.
Fair
enough.
Yeah. Probably empty if I've done the things correctly, but you were there to check me. And the rest of the script works well, so it goes now to show the path of the file that I selected. Other questions, or maybe just to show you when we change the receiver here, and for example, the message box, we'll put it just to change it here. And I'm updating the running instance of the receiver. And I put, what did I put? Is it exclamation marks? No, hello. So here, the message. Yeah, I should remove this. So contains hello.
Yep.
So you can edit now the receiver as you wish to make it work, but the messenger part and the context menu part is working well. I'll just remove message here. Take a second for that. And recompile. Yeah. Other questions?
Let me.
The last thing I would have to show you is the batch to remove the test context menu entries. That's all.
Let me real quickly summarize. See if I can somewhat closely summarize overall what we just learned. Right.
Yeah.
So without even thinking about the context menu part of things, right? You demonstrated how we can. Use one script to first check to see if another program's running, and then if it is, we're gonna send something from that original script to like the Windows post office, I think you described it as, with a specific address, and then the actual envelope itself, the message that we're going to give to that address, and then in the second running script or program, it knows to go keep watching the Windows post office. And look for something that goes to this address. And then when you do, depending on what the actual message is, you have some logic deciding on what to do with it, right?
Yeah.
And then what I loved was then you just said, okay, now, because that whole part about the context menu, while I love it, it's to me, it's an additional thing of now here's how you can use this stuff, because we can pass things from the context menu of Explorer to it. It doesn't have to be from script to script. Right, it's here's a way to actually use context.
Yeah, you could have a script that will receive the context menu command and execute something without having to communicate with another script. So there are two topics here that need to be put together to achieve what we wanted to do. Right. Is to send a command, in my case, to my app, telling it do something while you are already running and waiting for hotkeys or waiting for user interaction.
Right, and then. Correct me if I'm wrong on this part. This is where I get a little fuzzy as far as the definitions. Maybe it doesn't matter, but the Windows message thing, is that connecting through the Windows API? And is it also? I know you leverage a DLL call, but I also know there's that send message, I think, and I'm kind of confused on if it really even matters at all. If there's a difference between those three things: the Windows API, the DLL call, and the send and post message type. Things.
The send and post messages, those are built-in commands into Windows, which we just access by using the send and post command. So yeah, that is Windows API.
Okay.
That's for sure.
And Jackie, I know you're far above me on this with the lines, what is it, roughly 65 to 67, I think is the one that Jean was like, he didn't dig into them. Is there anything interesting there you can comment on?
I was looking mostly at the initial size in bytes, where you have the string length, where of course you get the length in, let's say in an ANSI build, you would get the exact length in characters, +1 for the null or the 0 terminator. And then by timing, exactly as Jean is showing there, you actually multiply it by either 2 or 1, depending on if it's that's a small ternary operator there. So you get the length of the string +1, and then you multiply it by 2 or 1 to actually know how many bytes to put inside your structure, which you actually made just above there, made ready at least. And then you use the commands numput, which are really used to actually put stuff in memory. So you already have the address. You got that with the VARSET capacity here above. Yeah, exactly. And made it a specific size by multiplying a pointer size, which would be 4 or 8, depending on your version of AutoHotkey. Or if it's
4 or 8 is the value.
32 or 64. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So that's where you set the size of the structure that you are actually using. And then numput would put in the actual data in both these two lines down here.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, we're doing this because we're directly interfacing with the Windows API, and we're loading something into a specific spot in memory. And that's why you need
Yeah.
to know exactly how big it is and what you're doing. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
And it's sending a trigger to the receiving app to say you have something to read.
Yeah, exactly. That's the send message, where when you use send message, you send to something specifically and you actually wait to get an answer.
Yes,
So
and the
when you
waiting
send out a message
on the receiver
Yeah.
part, here the waiting is
But wait, can we, because this is where,
on message this, do this.
right, but in reality, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Jean, but in reality, it's sending it to Windows, right?
Yeah.
As it's saving it there.
it's
The other tools,
yeah, it's sending it to the Windows shell, which is then popularizing the message queue, which all of the windows are reading. So
Okay.
that's why at one point Sean was using sleep -1.
Uh-huh.
The only thing that has no sleep, but it allows the script to actually check the queue of the messages. So that's
Okay.
that's what that
Yeah,
-1 is doing.
Yeah, I was just clarifying. It's not literally sending it to that program, right? But it in effect works that way, because the other one is that. Thanks for explaining that with the sleep
Yeah.
part and stuff, that and the queue. It's constantly monitoring that queue. Everything is, right, at least at the certain addresses. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, what I noted, prevent the cursor to turn to wait image for 5 seconds. I did not search twice, so that's my personal note when showing menu from desktop background. Because, so it's a QAP issue, it's not related to what we do here, but I also have a registry entry that will react, in fact, to when I right-click the desktop menu here, it will show, no, it's not here. No.
Of course
No.
not. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Hey,
but
Jean,
yeah, but there is another reason. In fact, it's so sleep -1 will kind of empty the queue or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
why is that?
Yeah.
Sorry, why is that? So in AutoHotkey, -1 is like nothing, right, time wise. But this really is -1 is 1 second. Is that right?
No.
No, it isn't.
Sleep command, you can enter a delay in milliseconds.
Right. So that really is.
-1, it says does not sleep, but
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Queue.
I forgot the minus part. Sorry. All right. Yeah. I'm like, that's no time. Yeah. Well, it is no time.
Yeah, that's a different command to the sleep command.
Okay. Thank you.
It can be used to force any pending interruption. Interruptions to occur at a specific place rather than somewhere more random.
Wow. Man.
And it's a Lexicos on the forum that told me to add this line because I had an issue with something somewhere.
Try not to laugh, but I'm actually looking forward to rewatching this webinar. So I mean, I get everything you covered and you did a great job, but this is some cool stuff, right? I mean, there's a lot here I can apply in a lot of different ways of just understanding some of how this is built.
Yeah, thank you. There's a part more technical, but you do not have, it's good to have Jackie explaining it, but you can reuse these parts as long as you stick to the syntax and you do not forget a backslash or a quote, it will work.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm going to go ahead since we're at the time, right? I was going to just stop the recording. Yeah, and then we'll start it back up and see what questions we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So